We're now talking to former Raiders and Lions safety Stuart Schweigert. Stuart, what's going on, bud?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, absolutely, and we're happy to have you.
I just subscribed to your channel on YouTube as well.
Well, thank you, man. We really appreciate
Yeah,
you. You're a good guy, and you look good, man. You look healthy. How are you and your family doing since COVID?
I mean, we've been fine. My wife's from Canada, so her family trying to get over here and see the grandkids hasn't been so easy. But I have 4 kids. 13 Cameron, my oldest daughter's 13 in 8th grade. My daughter Emma just turned 9 in 3rd. My son Alex is 4. He'll be 5 here in a couple of days. And then my youngest daughter is Avery. She's 3.5. And we live in West Lafayette. I went to school at Purdue University.
Mm-hmm.
So dude, life has never been better.
Well, what is it like being away from football for all that time? I mean, I know your life was football in high school and Pee Wee, and then
it'll be 10 years this November.
Wow!
I can't believe it, since my last time, buckling it up. I don't want to say strap it on because that seems a little. I don't like the way that sounds, but strapping it up, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, 10 years. Holy smokes! But I interrupted you. What was the question?
No. It's crazy when I look at your career and where you've been, and you played football for such a long time, really, from Pee Wee to high school to even college, and then playing the NFL as long as you did. It's weird when you step away from the game that you lived, slept, and smelt your whole life doing and playing.
So growing up in Saginaw, Michigan, I have my mother Carol was married to a man named John Kennelly and had my 4 older siblings, my sister Lisa, my brother Johnny, my brother Troy, and my other sister Jetty. Then they were divorced, and my father, Big Stu, I'm Little Stu, he's Big Stu, came from South Dakota, came into Saginaw, Michigan, and met my mother, had me. They got divorced, and my father remarried, had my little sister. So I come from a very big family, blue collar. My older siblings played sports. I was a gymnast for the first 10 years of my life.
Wow.
And then when I was about 10 years old, I was like the size of like the 18 or 19-year-olds in that sport. And I'm like, I think it's probably time to try something else here. But what a great foundation for me as far as core strength, flexibility, balance, and just all that stuff. But I played, baseball. I did taekwondo, and 4th and 5th grade is when I started playing football and basketball. In high school, I was a football, track, and basketball player. I was actually from 4th grade. I was a running back and cornerback. And then in high school, I ended up switching to quarterback. We ran the option. So I was more like, basically another 3rd running back, to be honest with you. And then switched to safety. And then loved track and field. My junior year, actually won the 100-meter dash state championship.
Wow, look at you.
In the state of Michigan. Class A, was the first white guy to win it since 1956. So it was quite an accomplishment for me, beating a guy named Charles Rogers, who was a great competitor of mine since we were 14. We both grew up in Saginaw, and football, basketball, and track, we battled each other. So I'm not sure why I started talking about this, but what was the initial question here?
I just want to ask you one thing. Is that the same Charles Rogers who played in the NFL or no?
Yes.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
Okay.
So me and Charles, very close friends. My senior year, my mom finally left for a weekend, and we had a huge party. And that's me and Charles before the senior year started, partaking in some underage activities. We probably shouldn't have been, but he actually fell asleep in my mom's bed. But Charles Rogers was the greatest athlete, greatest natural athlete that I've ever competed against. And I've had the pleasure of playing with guys like Randy Moss, Warren Sapp, Charles Woodson, Megatron, Calvin Johnson, and Charles Rogers was phenomenal. And since 14, we battled in football, basketball, and track. And one of the biggest things, right, coming from Michigan or Midwest, or actually anywhere, I guess, a 6'3", my sophomore year, 175, junior year, 185, senior year, 195. White dude is great locker room guy, great leader, smart, tough, not fast, not athletic, right? And I've always been fast. And when I beat him my junior year, it would have been like a white guy beating Usain Bolt. Like what? Like there's just no way. But that competition, I mean, we would have 6,000 or 7,000 people come watch a dual track meet against me and Charles Rogers on a Wednesday in Saginaw. You'd have Nick Saban, Barry Alvarez, Joe Tiller, Bob Davies, Lloyd Carr in the stands watching us run in a dual track meet. So competing against him, I mean, again, me wanting to beat him and basically, I always say this: you're only as good as your competition. And to have him growing up, and me and him were very close. We played against each other. Him at Michigan State, me at Purdue. Then him getting in the NFL, and unfortunately suffering the injuries that he had, and then initially being not kicked out of the league, but failing drug tests of marijuana, which is a legal substance. Now you look at it and it's like, it's unfortunate.
Yep.
And then the fact of him being labeled a bust just brought him into a Great Depression. And 2 years ago, he passed away. And it's still to this day, really hurts me. And it was unnecessary, but because of the public and because of media and that label of a bust, he just couldn't recover from it. But again, there wouldn't be a Stuart Schweigert without Charles Rogers. So thank you for allowing me to have a couple minutes to
Absolutely.
To talk about him. And again, he's was a very close friend of mine. I got to talk to him 2 days before he passed away. And but again, without him, I don't know if I would have had the route that I had. I would have played, but again, when I beat him, it was like people actually knew, like, wow, this kid can run.
As everybody knows, we are talking to former Raiders and Lions safety Stuart Schweigert. So, Stuart, your time with the Raiders, it's very interesting. And the Raiders have been a very interesting organization over the years. Hey,
big win this past Sunday against Denver, baby. Yes. It was a huge, huge win. So,
we know the Davis family as they have practically run, and sometimes people would say ruined this organization. I disagree. I think the Davis family have been the face of the NFL, one of the faces of the NFL as far as the ownership is concerned, and really has changed the NFL for what it is today.
Absolutely.
I mean, so what are your thoughts? You know the Davis family. You've been around them before. What was it like playing for the Davis family?
During the draft process. Coming out of Purdue, my freshman year, I was Big Ten Freshman of the Year. We won the Big Ten first time since 1967 when Greasy and Leroy Keys played back there. Drew Brees was my quarterback. Went to the Rose Bowl. I started all 4 years. I led the team in interceptions and tackles my freshman and sophomore year. All-American, Playboy All-American. Actually, I have Purdue's all-time interception record, which was 17, which is I have 17. The previous record was 11, held by a guy I'm sure you guys all know, Rod Woodson.
Of course.
One of my mentors, one of the greatest athletes to ever come out of Indiana, out of Purdue, Fort Wayne native, still has track records here at Purdue. Great man. So then, getting drafted. Al was a guy, each year there was a Al pick, right? He has his staff. They do, all these hours and hours of evaluation. And, at the Senior Bowl, you're getting basically the Senior Bowl is just another combine, right? I mean, coaches are there. You're doing tests, evaluations, psychological testing, measurements, all this stuff in between meetings and going to practice and being evaluated at practice by scouts and filling out questionnaires and stuff. Then you go to the combine. And I think the combine, unless you have a doctor's note, the saying that you're physically unable to perform, I think everybody should be under those conditions.
I agree. For
3 days. I mean, you don't do the actual physical stuff till the last day. I think everybody should be in those conditions, with the testing, with the no sleep, with the interviews, with the interviews in the evening, with all the stuff that goes with the combine. So I say this because of all the talk and all the phone calls and all the conversations with my agent and GMs. And, I took trips down to Miami and all this stuff on these visits and everything. And, you start to think of, teams that are showing you the most interest. Where could I go? Who needs safeties? What's your best bet? And the other thing too, the NFL draft is the NFL process from college to pro. I think is kind of messed up, because you look at college basketball players, right?
Right.
Shoot, they get to go to the combine and as a junior and talk to these guys and get evaluated, and then go, you know what, maybe I should go back. Maybe it's not time for me in the NBA. NFL wise, there's really no unless you're like, a top 10 pick. For the other guys, there's really no evaluation system to know, like, where do I fit in this draft, right? And there was a thing where they had this, and it was like an insurance company, that if you thought you had an opportunity to leave early, like, they would evaluate you, see what your draft status would be, and then give you a policy in case your senior year you got hurt, then you'd be paid out this amount. Mm-hmm. But again, it's like, we see you as an early second to late fifth, and it's like, I mean, what kind of evaluation is that, man? Like, that's not telling me anything, And then if you even think of talking to an agent or declaring, like, once you do, you can't come back, like the whole Maurice Clarett thing. It's just, I don't think it's fair. I think they need to adjust that a little bit so some of these players can get a proper evaluation on whether or not they should leave early or what's going on. But again, through this whole process, you're starting to, okay, this team, Houston Texans are showing this, and I'm looking at this, the Indianapolis Colts, and this team came and worked you out. Chuck Pagano came for the Cleveland Browns and did a private workout with me, and da 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 da. And people always say, "Did you know anything about the Raiders picking you?" I said, I said the only communication, literally the only communication that I had with the Raiders was at the NFL Combine, and in the evenings of day 2 and 3, you get a sheet, and it's from like 7 to 9, and it has, like, every 15 minutes there's a different team, right? Like, 7 o'clock the Bears, 7:15 the Colts, 7:30, and they'll have a bullhorn that blows, and basically the first floor of the hotel where the suites are, they clear the suites out. There's a wall with a dry erase board behind you, a seat, and then like these bleachers over here, and it's the entire staff, president, GM, everyone. They're just asking you questions, right? Well, then from 9 until 10, there's like this conference area where you go and people can just kind of grab you and fill out questionnaires. And I'm sitting there, and this elderly black gentleman comes up, and he's got this, this Raiders hat that's like, like an old, like my dad would wear or something, and like this, it's like a starter's Raider, like.
Yeah, I know I know exactly what you're talking about.
And these sweatpants, and he's like, he looks at me, he goes, "Schweigert?" I'm like, "Yep." He goes, "Can you sit down?" So I sit. He hands me this sheet, and literally, name, address, cell phone number, email, 3 best games, 3 worst games. I'm thinking, dude, this is like about a month before the draft. They don't have this information. What the hell are these guys doing? You know what I mean? Like, contact and thanks, son. And I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to freaking Oakland. You know what I mean? That was like the only communication I had.